The emergency room doors exploded inward at 11:47 p.m. Two paramedics burst through, pushing a gurney at a dead run. The wheels rattled against linoleum. The fluorescent lights caught the blood first. Dark, arterial, soaking through field dressings that someone had applied in a hurry. Jack Morrison looked up from restocking IV supplies in the corner. 62 years old, gray hair cut military short, hands steady as stone. He'd been a supply clerk at St. Mercy Medical Center for 8 months now. Before that, 30 years as a trauma nurse. Before that, something else entirely. Something nobody here knew about. The young man on the gurney couldn't have been more than 19. Army boots still laced tight, the kind of tight they teach you in basic training. His tactical vest was gone, but Jack could see where it should have been by the clean tears in his uniform shirt. High entry wounds, scattered grouping, incoming fire from an elevated position. Jack's hands stopped moving. This wasn't a training accident. The charge nurse Margaret, a 15-year veteran of night shifts, started barking orders. Young doctors materialized from the break room. Residents in clean scrubs with coffee still on their breath. They crowded around the gurney like seagulls on a fishing boat. Dr. Sarah Chen took point, 32 years old. Brilliant. Jack had watched her save 3 lives in the past month with nothing but skill and determination. But right now, her face showed something else. Fear. The kind of fear that comes when you realize you're not ready for what's in front of you. They crashed through the trauma bay doors. Jack followed at a distance. Not close, he knew his place now, but close enough to see through the glass. Close enough to know. Inside the trauma bay, controlled chaos became just case. Monitors screaming. Nurses cutting away clothing. Dr. Chen's voice rising above the noise, trying to sound certain, sounding young instead. Central line kit. I need a central line kit. Someone get me the rapid transfuser. The kid's vitals told a story on the monitors. Blood pressure dropping like a stone into deep water. Oxygen saturation falling. Heart rate climbing as the muscle tried to pump what wasn't there anymore. A second-year resident fumbled with a blood bag. Dropped it. The plastic hit the floor with a wet slap that echoed in the sudden silence. Dr. Chen reached for intubation equipment. Her hands shook. Just slightly. Just enough. Someone call the attending. I'm not trained for this level of trauma. I need someone who... The flat line hit like a gunshot. That sound Jack had heard in 3 different wars across 4 different continents. The sound that meant a heart had given up. The second-year resident started compressions. Too fast. Too shallow. Bouncing the patient instead of compressing the heart. Jack could see it from where he stood. Wrong rhythm, wrong depth, wrong everything. The kid was 19 years old and he was dying because nobody in that room knew what they were doing. Jack's eyes closed. In the darkness behind his eyelids, the fluorescent hum became helicopter rotors. The monitor alarms became automatic weapons fire. The smell of antiseptic became burning diesel and jungle rot and blood in tropical heat. Shao Valley, 1969. 3 wounded rangers and a radio full of shrapnel. Medevac 10 minutes out. Miller dying in 5 unless Jack did something right now. His eyes opened. Different man standing there. Jack walked forward, not fast, not slow. Inevitable as sunrise. Dr. Chen didn't see him until he was beside her. Sir, you need to... Step aside, doctor. His voice was quiet, almost conversational, but it carried weight that made every person in that room stop moving. Dr. Chen blinked. Who are that? Step aside, Oberson. Jack looked at the second-year resident still doing compressions wrong. You're bouncing him, not compressing. Move. The resident's hands froze. He looked at Dr. Chen. Jack's voice changed, not louder, harder. The voice that had once ordered men through machine gun fire and expected to be obeyed because disobedience meant death. I said move. The resident moved. Jack's hands found the kid's sternum, fingers locked, shoulders aligned. He started compressions that were deeper, slower controlled. 100 per minute, exactly. The rhythm he'd learned in 1978 and performed on 11 different battlefields. Dr. Chen stared. Who are you? Jack didn't look up. Doesn't matter. What matters is this soldier walked into an ambush and you're about to let him die. The room went silent except for the rhythmic thump of Jack's hands. A young nurse whispered, how does he know it was an ambush? Jack's voice stayed level. Wound pattern, high entry, scattered grouping. Incoming fire from elevated position. He's missing his plate carrier. This wasn't training. Someone tried to kill him. Dr. Chen looked at the wounds like she was seeing them for the first time. Jack kept compressing. 30, 31, 32. Tension pneumothorax, right side. Look at his trachea. Deviated. Neck veins distended. Right chest isn't moving. That's why his oxygen won't come up. I wasn't sure if, I'm sure, 14-gauge angiocath, second intercostal space. Now, Dr. Chen's hands shook as she grabbed the needle. Jack took it without breaking rhythm. Counted to 30. Stopped. His fingers found the space between ribs by touch alone. No hesitation. He'd done this in the dark, in the rain, in a helicopter, taking fire. The needle went in, air hissed out. High pressure, urgent. The sound of a drowning man getting his first real breath. The monitors changed their song. Blood pressure climbing, oxygen rising, heart rate steadying. The kid gasped. Jack pulled the needle, capped it, dropped it in the sharps container, stripped off his gloves and walked back toward his supply cart. Just like that. The trauma base stayed frozen for 3 full seconds. Then everybody moved at once, stabilizing what Jack had already saved. Dr. Chen turned to thank him, but he was already gone. She saw him through the glass, pushing his cart down the hallway, limping slightly, same steady pace as before. Margaret appeared at her elbow. That's Jack Morrison, supply clerk, night shift. Been here 8 months. Who is he really? Margaret shook her head. Nobody knows. He used to be something else. Something that doesn't fit on a resume. Through the glass, Jack disappeared around the corner, the squeak of his cart wheels fading. On the gurney, the kid took another breath. Still alive. The break room was empty at 12:30 a.m. Jack sat at the corner table with coffee that had been on the burner for 6 hours. It tasted like burnt failure, but he drank it anyway. The TV on the wall showed news with the sound off. Something about the VA healthcare crisis. Another scandal, another investigation, another generation of soldiers learning that their country loved them in recruitment commercials, but forgot them when they came home. Jack had learned that lesson in 1971. The door opened. Dr. Chen walked in. Still wearing trauma-based scrubs. Still carrying that shell-shocked expression of someone who'd just been reminded they could fail. She got coffee, stood by the counter, working up courage. Jack stood to leave. Wait, her voice stopped him at the door. I wanted to thank you. That kid would have died if you hadn't. You would have figured it out. No, I wouldn't have. I froze. I panicked. She set her cup down hard. Where did you learn that? Jack looked at her, really looked. Young enough to be his daughter. Smart enough that she'd probably never failed before tonight. Honest enough to admit when she was out of her depth. Good qualities. Long time ago, doesn't matter now. It matters to that soldier upstairs. Dr. Chen. His voice was gentle, but it stopped her. Kids breathing. That's all that counts. He walked out before she could ask anything else. The hallway stretched empty and fluorescent. The squeak of his cart wheels was a metronome counting down to nothing. His phone buzzed, unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Almost. But something made him. Morrison. The voice on the other end was military, official, the kind of authority that didn't waste time. Staff Sergeant Jack Morrison, Colonel Raymond Hayes, Joint Special Operations Command. Do you have a moment? Jack stopped walking. His cart rolled 2 more feet on momentum. 35 years since anyone called him Staff Sergeant. 35 years since he'd been anything but a civilian, trying to forget what his hands knew. I'm retired, sir. I'm aware, honorably discharged 1989. Nursing school, civilian trauma for 30 years. Mandatory retirement at 60. Now part-time supply clerk at St. Mercy. Hayes paused. Should I go on? Jack's jaw tightened. What do you want? The soldier you just saved, Private Tommy Reed, 19 years old. Ranger qualified. His unit got sent stateside for a classified operation. Another pause. That operation went very wrong. Changed coordinates. Wrong LZ. Someone with inside access burned them. Jack closed his eyes. How many? 3 dead, 4 wounded. Reed was the only one conscious during extraction. And now someone is trying to make sure he doesn't stay conscious. Explain. 30 minutes ago, someone entered Reed's hospital room. Security footage shows Scrub's face hidden medical knowledge. They accessed his IV port, injected something. Nurse walked in, they fled. We found the syringe. Succinylcholine, untraceable if it works. Paralysis, respiratory failure, death. Jack's hand tightened on the phone. Professional. Very. Military training, inside knowledge of hospital layout, medical protocol, Reed's exact location. Hayes let that sit. Reed won't talk to our medics, won't talk to anyone. But when he woke up and they told him an old supply clerk saved his life, he said something interesting. He said you had the look, said you were Ranger qualified. Jack didn't respond. Reed is protecting evidence, documents proving corruption in defense contracts, $2 billion in fraudulent spending, goes to congressional oversight committees. If he testifies, a dozen powerful people go to prison. If he dies, the evidence chain breaks. You have protection on him. I have two MPs who are probably compromised. A chain of command I can't trust. A conspiracy running 15 years with unlimited resources. Hayes' voice hardened. What I don't have is someone I can trust absolutely to keep that kid alive while I figure out who's trying to kill him. Jack looked at his cart. Gauze, IV kits, bandages. I haven't been in the field in 35 years. I don't need you in the field. I need you to do what you just did. Keep him breathing when everything is trying to stop him. Off book. Quiet. No trail. Jack was quiet. The fluorescent lights hummed. Down the hall, a monitor beeped. The hospital's endless cycle of crisis and recovery. He thought about Claire, their last conversation before the morphine took her too far for words. She'd looked at him with eyes that had seen through his walls for 40 years. Don't stop, she'd whispered. Don't let them make you stop being who you are. And Jack opened his eyes. When do I start? Black SUV waiting in the parking lot. They'll take you to Reed's location. Bring what you need. You'll be off grid until we sort this out. The hospital? We'll handle it. As far as St. Mercy is concerned, you called in sick. Hayes paused. Jack, thank you. You're asking me to protect a soldier who walked into an ambush because someone powerful wanted him dead. That's not complicated, Colonel. That's just the right thing to do. Hayes hung up. Jack stood in the hallway for another moment. Then he walked to the staff locker room, opened his locker, pulled out the go bag he'd kept there for 8 months, just in case. Inside were spare clothes, first aid kit, protein bars, water, and at the bottom, wrapped in cloth, something he hadn't touched since 1989. His Ranger tab, the one they gave him after Ashau Valley. After the ambush that killed 12 men and left Jack alive through luck and a willingness to keep fighting when everyone else was dead. He looked at it for a long moment, put it back, closed the locker, walked toward the exit. Behind him, Dr. Chen watched from the break room doorway. She'd heard the whole conversation even though she shouldn't have, even though it was none of her business. She watched Jack Morrison walk out with the stride of a man who just remembered he had somewhere to be, someone to protect. And for just a moment, she saw him not as a supply clerk, but as what he actually was. A weapon everyone had forgotten was loaded. The black SUV sat exactly where Hayes said. 2 men in plain clothes stood beside it, ex-military, the kind who never really stopped serving. One nodded. Staff Sergeant Morrison. Just Jack. Colonel Hayes sends his regards. 40-minute dive. You will be briefed en route. Jack threw his bag in back and climbed in. The SUV merged into Portland's empty 1 a.m. streets. They drove in silence for 10 minutes before the passenger turned around. You should know what you're walking into. Reed is scared, paranoid, thinks everyone is trying to kill him, which isn't paranoia because someone actually is trying to kill him. He's been through hell and he's 19 years old. I know how to handle scared, Jack said. Colonel Hayes mentioned Rangers. Vietnam. 75 Alpha, combat medic. The 2 men exchanged glances, a whole conversation and a look. The driver spoke. My dad was 1st Cav. Vietnam. Doesn't talk about it much. Nobody does. Talking doesn't help. Just makes you remember things you spent 50 years trying to forget. They drove past the river, city lights reflecting on dark water. Portland was beautiful at night if you didn't look too close. The location is a decommissioned wing of the old VA hospital, supposed to be shut down for renovation. Nobody goes there, perfect for hiding someone. Jack nodded. He knew that VIA hospital, volunteered there on weekends, taught young medics things they couldn't learn from textbooks. How to stay calm when someone was dying. How to make decisions when every option was bad. How to live with yourself after. The SUV pulled into a side entrance, hidden from the street. The building looked abandoned, but Jack saw the signs. Fresh tire tracks, new lock on the service door. 2 men in civilian clothes moving like infantry watching from second-story windows. Hayes wasn't taking chances. They walked Jack through corridors past rooms filled with dusty equipment and old memories. The VA had always been an afterthought, the place where the nation put its soldiers when it was done using them. The room at the end of the hall had 2 MPs outside, both young, both alert, both probably compromised if Hayes was right, but they let Jack through. Private Tommy Reed sat on a hospital bed in civilian clothes, looking exactly like what he was, a kid who'd seen too much too soon. He looked up when Jack entered. His eyes went sharp, focused, scanning. Combat instinct you never lose. You're the one. Jack closed the door, set his bag down, took a chair, not too close, giving the kid space. My name is Jack Morrison. I'm a medic. I'm here to keep you alive until we figure out who's trying to kill you. Tommy laughed, but there was no humor in it. Good luck. They're everywhere. Our own people. The op was supposed to be clean. Simple courier run. Classified documents base to base. But someone changed the coordinates. We landed in a kill zone. 50 caliber fire from 3 positions. They knew exactly where we'd be. Jack listened. First skill they taught in medic training. Before you treat the wound, you listen. 3 of my team are dead. Martinez, Johnson, Williams. We went through Ranger School together. I watched Martinez die dragging Williams to cover. Tommy's voice cracked. And then in the hospital someone came. I was drifting, half asleep. Felt something wrong in my IV. Hit the call button. They ran. Succinylcholine, Jack said quietly. Tommy nodded. Whoever it was had medical training. Knew exactly where to inject, exactly how much. If I'd been fully asleep, I'd be dead and nobody would know why. Jack stood, walked to Tommy's bedside. Let me check your wounds. He pulled back the dressing on Tommy's shoulder, examined the entry wound, palpated for foreign bodies. Professional, competent, the way he'd done 1,000 times. Tommy watched him. You're not just a supply clerk. No. Rangers, Jack nodded once. When? Long time ago. Different war, same shit. Tommy was quiet. Then, do you believe me that our own people are trying to kill me? Jack met his eyes. Son, I once watched a lieutenant call in artillery on his own men because someone paid him to. So yeah, I believe you. Something in Tommy's face cracked. Not weakness, relief. I'm scared. I'm 19 years old and I'm scared. Jack sat back down. Good. Fear keeps you alert. Fear keeps you alive. Only the stupid aren't scared. Were you scared in Vietnam? Jack was quiet for a long time. Outside, Portland slept. Finally, he spoke. Every single day, from the moment I landed to the moment I left. But being scared doesn't mean you stop. Doesn't mean you quit. Means you do the job anyway. Jack leaned forward. Right now, your job is to stay alive, to testify, to make sure Martinez and Johnson and Williams didn't die for nothing. Think you can do that? Tommy's jaw set. Young, stubborn determination. Yeah, I can do that. Then we understand each other. Jack stood, started unpacking his bag. Medical supplies, bandages, pain medication. And at the bottom, wrapped in cloth, a Beretta M9 he'd kept cleaned and oiled for 35 years, despite never planning to use it again. He set it on the table between them. Tommy stared. I thought you were a medic. I am, but in Vietnam, we learned quick that you can't save somebody if you're dead. So we learned to shoot too. Jack looked at the gun like it was a snake. Haven't touched this in decades. Hoped I never would again. But you brought it. Yeah. Why, Jack looked at Tommy, 19 years old, scared, alone, marked for death. Because I already buried too many soldiers I couldn't save. I'm not burying another one. Outside, Portland kept sleeping. Inside, an old medic and a young ranger sat in silence that only exists between people who've seen the same darkness. Somewhere in the shadows, someone was planning their next move. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, Tommy Reed was alive, and Jack Morrison remembered what it felt like to have a mission. Dawn broke over Portland like a wound. Red lights seeping through the gaps in the boarded windows of the old VA hospital wing. Jack Morrison hadn't slept. He'd spent the night in a chair by the door, the Beretta within reach, watching Tommy Reed breathe in the steady rhythm of exhausted youth. At 600 hours, Jack's phone buzzed. Colonel Hayes. Morrison, status? Reed is stable, physically. Mentally, he's holding together, but the cracks are showing. Good. Listen, we've got movement. Someone accessed the hospital record system at 0430 this morning. Tried to pull Reed's transfer location. RIT caught it, but they were using a DoD IP address. Military access. Jack's jaw tightened. Inside job confirmed. Gets worse. The attempt came from inside St. Mercy Medical Center. Someone on staff. Someone with medical credentials and military clearance. Hayes paused. We're running it down, but it's going to take time. Meanwhile, Reed stays where he is. You stay with him. Understood. Jack, whoever this is, they're not some hired contractor. They're trained, they're embedded, and they're getting desperate. Hayes's voice dropped. Watch your six. The line went dead. Tommy stirred on the bed, his eyes opened instantly alert. That combat reflex where you wake up ready to fight. What's wrong? Someone tried to find you, electronically. From inside the hospital where I work. Tommy sat up too fast, winced. His shoulder wound, reminding him it was still there. They know where I am. No, the attempt was blocked, but it tells us something. What? Jack walked to the window, checked the street below. Empty. For now. Tells us they're scared. Scared people make mistakes, and scared people with power are the most dangerous kind. Tommy swung his legs off the bed, stood on shaky legs. We should move. If they're looking, they'll find us eventually. Not yet. Hayes has this place locked down, 2 exits both covered, sniper overwatch on the building across the street. We move now, we're exposed. Jack turned from the window. Right now, our job is to let them make the next mistake. That's easy for you to say. You're not the one they're trying to kill. Jack's eyes went hard. Some people have been trying to kill me since before you were born. The trick is making them regret trying. Tommy stared at him, really seeing him for the first time. Not a supply clerk, not even just a medic, something else entirely. What did you do in Vietnam? Jack was quiet for a long moment. Outside, Portland woke up. Traffic sounds, normal people going to normal jobs, living normal lives where nobody tried to poison their IV. I kept people alive, Jack finally once said, in places where everything was trying to kill them. And when keeping them alive meant stopping the things trying to kill them, I did that too. How many? How many what? How many people did you kill? Jack looked at Tommy, 19 years old and already asking the questions that would haunt him for the next 50 years. Enough that I stopped counting, not enough that it made a difference. Jack walked to his bag, pulled out protein bars and water bottles, tossed them to Tommy. Eat, you need calories. Healing burns energy. Tommy caught them but didn't open them. Does it get easier, the nightmares, the guilt? No. Then how do you live with it? Jack sat down heavily in the chair, his left leg aching where the shrapnel still lived under the skin. You don't live with it, you live around it. You find reasons to keep getting up. You find people who need you. You do the work in front of you and try not to think too hard about the work behind you. And when there's no work left, Jack looked at him, then you find some, because the alternative is sitting still with your memories, and that's how you eat a bullet. The words hung in the air between them, truth too raw for morning light. Tommy opened the protein bar, ate in silence. Jack's phone buzzed again, this time a text, unknown number. The message was simple. Check the medication cabinet, 3rd shelf behind the bandages. Jack stood, walked to the supply cabinet in the corner of the room. Old VI hospital stock. Most of it expired, but still there. 3rd shelf, behind the bandages. He moved them aside, found a small plastic bag. Inside was a hospital ID badge. St. Mercy Medical Center. The photo showed a man in his 50s. Distinguished. White coat. Stethoscope around his neck. Dr. Victor Stone, Chief of Emergency Medicine. Jack stared at the badge, his blood running cold. Tommy came up beside him. Who's that? The man trying to kill you. Jack's mind was racing. Victor Stone. He knew that name, knew that face. But from where then it clicked? Afghanistan, 2009. Jack had been there on a civilian medical mission. Red Cross, treating wounded in a field hospital outside Kandahar. There'd been a CIA liaison, smooth, professional, the kind of man who could order a drone strike and sleep soundly after. That man had been named Stone, but there was more. Jack closed his eyes, remembering. A mission that went wrong, an informant who disappeared. Whispers about someone burning assets for profit, and Stone's face in the background. Always watching, always calculating. I know him, Jack said quietly. Or I knew him, 15 years ago. Different war. He was CIA then, handler for covert operations in Afghanistan. CIA? Tommy's voice cracked. Jesus Christ, how deep does this go? Deep enough that they're not sending contractors, they're sending one of their own. Jack pulled out his phone, called Hayes. Colonel, the insider at St. Mercy. His name is Victor Stone, Chief of Emergency Medicine, but that's not what he really is. Hayes was silent for 3 seconds. How do you know that name? Because I met him in Afghanistan. He was CIA then, handler for covert operations. ran assets in country. And if I remember right, there were questions about his methods, about money going missing, about informants who ended up dead. Jack's jaw clenched. He's not just some hospital administrator. He's a professional killer who knows how to hide in plain sight. Son of a bitch. Hayes breathed out slowly. Okay, this changes everything. If Stone is former CIA with wet work experience, he's got resources we can't match, training we can't counter, and he's already inside the hospital system with full access to medical records. There's more. If he's the one who tried to access Reed's location this morning, he knows we're looking for him, which means he's going to move fast. Which means you need to move faster. There's a backup location. Old warehouse district near the docks, industrial area, condemned buildings. I'm texting you the address now. Get there. My man Wilson will meet you. Former Delta. You can trust him. What about the MPS outside? Leave them. They don't know anything, and Stone might not know about the new location yet. Use that window. Hayes paused. Jack. Stone was very good at what he did. Multiple successful operations. High-value targets. Don't underestimate him. I won't. Jack hung up, looked at Tommy. Get dressed. We're leaving in 5 minutes. Where? Somewhere safer than here. Tommy moved fast despite his wounds, pulled on shoes, grabbed his jacket. How do we get past the MPS? We don't. Jack walked to the window, opened it carefully. We go the way they're not watching. The drop to the alley below was 15 feet. Not ideal, but doable. Jack had done worse in Hughes City in 1968. Jack went first. His legs screamed when he hit the ground, but he rolled with it. Absorbed the impact the way they'd taught him in airborne school a lifetime ago. Came up scanning for threats. Tommy followed, landed harder, gasped, but he stayed on his feet. They moved through the alley, Jack leading with the smooth efficiency of someone who'd done 1,000 tactical movements. Every sense alert, every shadow of a potential threat. The street beyond was empty. Morning traffic hadn't picked up yet. Jack's truck was parked 2 blocks over. A beat-up Ford F-150 that looked like it belonged to an old man who couldn't afford better. Which was exactly the point. They reached it without incident. Jack climbed in. Tommy took shotgun. The engine turned over with a rattle that said it had seen better decades but still got the job done. Jack pulled into traffic. Drove normal. Speed limit. Turn signals. Nothing to see here. Just an old man and his grandson heading somewhere that wasn't worth noticing. But his eyes never stopped moving. Checking mirrors. Scanning intersections. Looking for the tail that his gut said was coming. 3 blocks from the VA hospital, he spotted it. Black sedan, 2 cars back, professional distance, tinted windows, following their exact route with just enough variation to seem coincidental. We've got company, Jack said quietly. Tommy twisted in his seat. How do you know? Because they're doing everything right, which means they're trained. Jack took a left turn without signaling. The sedan followed after a 2-second delay. Hang on. Jack had grown up in Portland, knew every street, every alley, every shortcut that hadn't existed when city planners drew their neat little maps. He'd spent his teenage years running from cops and his 20s running from worse things. The geography was in his blood. He took them through the warehouse district. Narrow streets, tight corners, places where a big sedan couldn't follow without revealing itself. The tail stayed back. Patient, professional, waiting, smart. Jack smiled. No humor in it, just the cold calculation of a man who'd played this game in Saigon and Fallujah and knew every variation. He pulled into a loading dock, hidden from the street, killed the engine. They sat in silence, waiting. The sedan cruised past, slow, searching. Jack watched in the side mirror, got a glimpse of the driver through the windshield. White male, 50s, salt and pepper hair. Expensive sunglasses even though the sun was barely up. The kind of control that came from years of operating in hostile territory. Victor Stone. So he was doing his own hunting now. That was either very confident or very desperate. Jack suspected both. He waited until the sedan turned the corner, counted to 30, then started the engine, pulled out, went the opposite direction. The warehouse Hayes specified was 30 minutes across town. Jack took 45, doubling back, changing routes, using every counter-surveillance technique he'd learned in 3 wars and never forgotten. By the time they arrived, he was reasonably certain they were clean. The warehouse sat on the water, old shipping facility from when Portland's docks actually shipped things. Now it was just rust and seagulls and the smell of industrial decay. A man waited by the loading bay door, civilian clothes but military posture, 40 years old maybe, fit, alert, the kind of calm that came from seeing combat and surviving. He nodded when he saw Jack's truck. Morrison. Yeah. Wilson, Colonel Hayes sent me. I'll be your security while you're here. He looked at Tommy. Private Reed, good to see you alive, son. They followed Wilson inside. The warehouse was mostly empty. Concrete floor, high ceilings. Windows so grimy they barely let in light. But in the back corner, someone had set up a makeshift living space. Cots, supplies, a portable generator humming in the corner. Not pretty, but it's secure, Wilson said. Building's been condemned for 5 years. Nobody comes here, nobody watches it, and it's got 3 exits if things go south. Jack walked the perimeter, checking sight lines, evaluating defensibility, old habits that never died. How many people know we're here? Just me and Hayes, nobody else in the chain. Not even the MPs at the VA know where you went. Wilson pulled out a laptop. Colonel wants a video call in 10 minutes. Said you'd want to see what they found. Jack nodded, helped Tommy get settled on one of the cots. The kid's face was gray, pain breaking through the adrenaline. When did you last take your meds? This morning at the VA. That was 6 hours ago. Jack dug through his bag, found the prescription bottle. Take 2. Don't be a hero. Pain slows your thinking, and slow thinking gets you killed. Tommy swallowed the pills dry. You sound like my drill sergeant. Your drill sergeant was right. Wilson's laptop chimed. He turned it toward Jack. The screen showed Colonel Hayes in what looked like a secure operations center. Multiple monitors behind him. People moving with purpose. Jack, good, you made it. Stone was tailing us. Lost him in the warehouse district, but he's hunting. Hayes' face hardened. We need to talk about Stone. We ran his full file. What we found is worse than we thought. I'm listening. Victor Stone, age 58, CIA for 23 years, specialized in wet work, assassinations, regime change, covert operations, the kind that don't officially exist. Hayes leaned forward. He left the agency 5 years ago, officially. But we found something interesting in his financial records. Wire transfers, offshore accounts, $12 million from shell companies with ties to the same defense contractors that Reed's evidence implicates. Jack's jaw tightened. So he didn't leave. He just changed employers. Exactly. Now he's a highly trained operative working for the people who have the most to lose if Reed testifies. And Jack, this man's file. 14 confirmed kills across 7 countries. Survived operations that would break normal people. Speaks 5 languages. Expert in close quarters, combat long-range assassination chemical weapons, and tactical medicine. Tactical medicine, Jack repeated. So he knows how to kill someone and make it look natural. Medical knowledge combined with operational training. Which is why the succinylcholine in Reed's IV was his MO, clean, untraceable. Looks like complications from injuries. Hayes pulled up a photo, security footage. We pulled this from St. Mercy, the night Reed was brought in. That's Stone, standing in the background of the trauma bay. Watching. Jack stared at the image. Stone in a white coat, stethoscope, looking every bit the concerned physician. But his eyes were on Jack, watching the old supply clerk save Tommy Reed's life. He saw me, Jack said quietly, knows what I look like, knows what I can do, which makes you a target too. He'll come for both of you. Hayes' voice was grim. Jack, I can't get you official backup for 48 hours. FBI needs warrants. Legal framework to move on a former CIA operative, politics and bureaucracy. We'll hold. Can you, for 2 days against someone like Stone? Jack looked at Tommy sleeping on the cot. 19 years old, wounded, marked for death by people with unlimited resources. I held Quezon for 77 days with half my unit dead and the other half wounded. I can hold a warehouse for 48 hours. Jack's voice was cold as winter steel. Let him come. Hayes stared at him through the screen, seeing not a supply clerk, but what Jack had been before. What he'd never really stopped being. Roger that. I'll coordinate with FBI. Get you that backup ASAP. Wilson will watch your back until then. He's one of my best. The call ended. Wilson closed the laptop. So we're babysitting for 2 days while a trained CIA assassin hunts us. Outstanding. Jack almost smiled. Could be worse. How? Could be 3 days. Wilson laughed, short, sharp. The kind of laugh soldiers make when they're scared but won't admit it. You know what I like you, Morrison. You're crazy, but I like you. Crazy keeps you alive sometimes. The hours crawled past. Jack dozed lightly in his chair. Not really sleeping, just that combat rest where part of your brain stays on guard. Wilson took first watch properly, his rifle across his knees, eyes on the shadows. At 1400 hours, Jack's phone buzzed. Text message, unknown number. You're good, Morrison. Better than I expected. But you can't protect him forever. Sooner or later, you'll sleep. You'll blink. You'll make a mistake. And when you do, I'll be there. You should have stayed a supply clerk. This isn't your world anymore. Stone. Jack stared at the message, then typed back one word. Try. No response. Wilson looked over. Stone. Jack showed him the phone. Wilson whistled low. Psychological warfare. He's trying to get in your head, make you doubt yourself. Won't work. I've had scarier people than him promise to kill me. Most of them are dead now. Jack set the phone down. But it tells us something important. What? He's alone. If he had a full team, he wouldn't bother with intimidation tactics. He'd just hit us hard and fast. But Stone is operating solo, one man, which means we have a chance. One former CIA assassin with unlimited resources against an old medic, a wounded kid, and one Delta operator. Those aren't great odds. I've worked with worse. Jack stood, walked to the window, looked out at the gray Portland afternoon. Besides, he's making assumptions. Assuming I'm just an old man. Assuming you're just one operator. Assuming we're alone. Wilson frowned. We are alone, aren't we? Jack pulled out his phone, scrolled through his contacts, found a name he hadn't called in 6 months. Carlos Rivera, Doc, his best friend from Vietnam. The man who'd pulled him out of a burning Huey in 1970. The man he'd trust with his life. He made the call. Brother, Carlos answered. Twice in 1 year, I'm honored. I need help. The tone changed immediately. Say when and where. You don't know what you're signing up for. Jack, I signed up in 1967 when I put on the uniform. Once a Ranger, always a Ranger. What do you need? Jack explained. The whole situation, Tommy, Stone, the warehouse, the 2-day hold. Carlos was quiet for a long moment. So you're protecting a kid against a professional killer and you need backup. Yeah. How many are you expecting Stone to bring? If he's smart, he'll hire local contractors. Figure 10 to 15. Professional, well-armed. Hit us at night. And you want me to bring the old guard? Jack smiled for the first time in hours. Can I, brother? I've been waiting for this call for 20 years. These old bastards are bored out of their minds. You're about to make their whole year. Carlos's voice was fierce with joy. How many you need? As many as you can trust. Veterans, people who remember how to fight. I can get you 6, all combat vets, all still capable. Oldest is 73, but he can still shoot, and he's mean as hell. That'll work. Can you be here by nightfall? We'll be there about 1800. And Jack, thank you for this, for letting us matter again. You always mattered, Carlos. Yeah, but the world forgot. This reminds them. The call ended. Wilson stared at Jack. Did you just call in a bunch of old men to fight professional killers? I called in Rangers. Age is just a number. Skill is forever. You're absolutely insane. Probably, but we're about to even the odds. They arrived at 1745 hours. 6 men in civilian clothes, ages ranging from 60 to 73. Gray hair, weathered faces, scars visible on forearms and hands. They moved with the careful economy of people whose bodies hurt, but whose spirits refused to quit. Carlos led them, 58 years old, built like a boxer gone to seed but still dangerous. He grinned when he saw Jack. Brother. They embraced, hard, the kind of hug that said everything words couldn't. Thanks for coming. Wouldn't miss it. Carlos turned to the others. Gentlemen, meet Jack Morrison, best combat medic I ever served with. Saved my life in Hugh City. Saved it again in Khe Sanh. I'd follow this man into hell. The introductions went fast, military style, name rank unit. Mike Chen, Gunnery Sergeant Marines, Vietnam Gulf War, 68 years old and I can still shoot. Thomas McKinley, Specialist Army, Vietnam, 71. My knees are shot, but my eyes are fine. James Peterson, Corporal Marines, Vietnam, 73. Wheelchair bound, but I brought my shotgun. David Walsh, Sergeant Army, Desert Storm, 65. Still running 3 miles a day. Robert Kim, Staff Sergeant Air Force, Vietnam Gulf War, 69. Explosives expert. Jack looked at them, 6 old men, beat up by time and war, Most people would see them and think they were harmless, obsolete, past their prime. Those people would be wrong. Thank you all for coming. I won't lie to you. This is dangerous. We're protecting a federal witness against professionals. They will come hard, and they will not expect us. Nee, Mike Chen smiled. Good. Been too long since I had a real fight. What's the tactical situation? Thomas asked. All business. Jack walked them through it. The warehouse layout, the 3 exits, the likely approach vectors, the timeline, Stone's capabilities. Robert Kim studied the building. I can rig the east entrance, Claymore style. Won't kill, but it'll slow them down and let us know they're coming. Do it, but make it non-lethal if possible. We're defending, not executing. Understood. Wilson appeared with a duffel bag. Colonel Hayes sent some equipment. Nothing fancy, but it'll help. He pulled out tactical vests, communications gear, night vision, and 6 AR-15 with ammunition. James looked at the rifle, then at his wheelchair. I'll take the shotgun and position me by the north entrance. Anyone comes through that door, they'll regret it. David nodded. I'll take overwatch on the 2nd floor. My eyes are still good for distance. They spent the next 2 hours turning the warehouse into a fortress. Not high-tech, old school, overlapping fields of fire, choke points, fallback positions, the kind of defense that Ranger School taught and combat perfected. Tommy watched from his cot. Are they really going to fight? They're so old, Jack finished. Yeah, they are. But you know what old means in this context. What experience these men have fought in jungles and deserts. They've survived ambushes and sieges. They've seen things that would break younger men, and they're still here, still ready, still willing to stand between evil and innocence. Jack's voice was quiet but fierce. Don't underestimate them. Stone's people will. That's the advantage. At 2,000 hours, they were ready. 7 old men, 1 wounded kid, 1 active Delta operator, against however many Stone brought. Carlos found Jack on the 2nd floor. Like old times. Yeah, except we're 60 instead of 20. We're slower, but we're smarter, and we're meaner. Carlos checked his rifle. You think he'll really come tonight? If he's smart, he'll wait. Scout us first. Learn our patterns. Hit us when we're tired. Jack looked out at the darkening Portland sky. But Stone isn't just smart. He's arrogant. Thinks he's hunting prey. He'll come soon. Good. I'm tired of waiting to matter again. You always mattered. To you, to the guys, but to the world. Carlos shook his head. World decided we were done. Too old, too slow, too obsolete. Tonight we remind them what old warriors look like. At 0200 hours, Robert's tripwire alarm went off. East entrance. Jack's radio crackled. Movement, multiple contacts. I count 12, professional formation. They're trying the east door. Copy, hold position. Let them come to us. The warehouse went dark. They'd killed the generator 30 minutes ago. Now they owned the darkness. Every one of them had fought at night, had learned to see in shadows, had made the dark their friend. The east door breached. Flashbang, smoke, standard entry tactics. Robert's improvised claymore went off, not explosives, ball bearings and compressed air. Non-lethal but devastating in close quarters. Screams, confusion, 3 attackers down, not dead, just hurt and disoriented. The remaining 9 pushed through, professional, not panicking, adapting. But they were entering a killing field designed by men who'd spent 50 years learning how to defend positions against superior numbers. Mike Chen opened fire from the 1st floor, controlled bursts, not spraying, picking targets. 2 more down. David Walsh from the 2nd floor, long-range precision, 1 shot, 1 hit. Center mass, another attacker dropped. The assault team tried to return fire, but they couldn't find targets. The old men were ghosts, shooting and moving, using the terrain, fighting smart instead of hard. James Peterson at the north entrance. 1 attacker tried to flank, came through that door thinking it was clear. The shotgun blast was deafening. The attacker went down. North entrance secured, James said calmly, like he'd done this yesterday instead of 40 years ago. Wilson was moving with Jack, both of them heading to the 2nd floor, looking for Stone because the man was too smart to lead the assault himself. He'd be outside. Commanding. Coordinating. There, Wilson pointed, rooftop across the street, muzzle flash. Stone was providing sniper support, trying to pick off defenders from distance. Jack grabbed the AR-15. Cover me. He moved to the window. Stone fired. The bullet shattered glass 2 feet from Jack's head. Close but not close enough. Jack returned fire. Not at Stone, at the rooftop access door behind him, cutting off his escape route. Stone adjusted, fired again, this time at Wilson. Wilson dropped, hit in the shoulder, not fatal but bleeding. Jack kept firing, suppressive, keeping Stone's head down. Below, the firefight was ending. The assault team was down to 4 attackers, all of them wounded, all of them realizing they'd walked into a trap. Carlos's voice on the radio. They're retreating, east entrance, 4 mobile, 4 down and wounded. Let them go, secure the wounded. We need them for interrogation. Jack turned back to the rooftop. Stone was gone. Escaped while Jack was focused on Wilson. He ran to Wilson, applied pressure to the shoulder wound. Combat medicine, automatic as breathing. How bad? Clean through, missed the bone, I'll live. Wilson grimaced. Where'd you learn to shoot like that? Same place I learned to patch bullet holes. Vietnam. The warehouse was secure. 4 wounded attackers in zip ties. Wilson stabilized and resting. The old guard checking each other for injuries. Some bruises, some strain, but alive. All of them alive. Jack walked the perimeter, checking on each man. Mike Chen was breathing hard but grinning. That was the most alive I've felt in 20 years. Thomas McKinley was sitting against a wall. My knees are screaming, but my soul is singing. James Peterson in his wheelchair. Shotgun across his lap. I got one. At 73 years old, I got one. David Walsh climbed down from his sniper position. 5 shots, 4 hits. Not bad for old eyes. Robert Kim was checking his improvised claymore. Worked perfectly. Maybe I still remember some things. Carlos found Jack. We did it, brother. 7 old men just beat 12 professional contractors. We did, and nobody died. That's the important part. Stone got away. Yeah, but we heard him, took out his team, proved he's not invincible. Jack looked at his friend. Thank you. For coming, for bringing them, for proving that old doesn't mean useless. We proved it to ourselves, too. That's worth more than you know. The FBI arrived at 0600 hours. Agent Reeves with a full tactical team. They secured the scene, arrested the wounded contractors, started the interrogation process. She found Jack sitting on a crate, exhausted, his leg killing him, but satisfied. Morrison, I have to say, when Colonel Hayes told me you'd held off an assault with a bunch of old veterans, I didn't believe him. Now I do. They're not just old veterans, they're Rangers. Age doesn't change that. And clearly, she looked around. One of the contractors is talking. Says Stone hired them 12 hours ago, promised them $50,000 each. Told them it would be easy. 1 old man and a kid. He underestimated us. Apparently, but Morrison Stone is still out there, still hunting. We need to get you and Reed to a federal facility. Real security this time. Jack nodded. Agreed. But the old guard comes too. They've earned protection. I can arrange that. Tommy appeared. Looking at Jack with something like awe. You did it? You actually did it. We did it, all of us together. Jack stood slowly, his body protesting every movement. That's how soldiers survive, not alone, together. Wilson was being loaded into an ambulance. He gave Jack a thumbs up. Hell of a night, Morrison. Hell of a night. Jack watched them load the wounded contractors, watched the FBI process the scene, watched Carlos and the old guard joke with each other like they were 20 again. His phone buzzed. Text from Stone. Well played, but this isn't over. I always finish my contracts. Jack typed back, so do I, and my contract is keeping Reed alive. Come find out what happens when you try to break it. No response. But Jack knew Stone would come again. Men like that didn't give up. They adapted. They evolved. They waited for the right moment. But now Jack had allies, had backup, had proof that he wasn't alone in this fight. And when Stone came again, Jack would be ready. They all would be. Because once a Ranger, always a Ranger. No matter how many years pass, no matter how old you get, some things never change. The will to fight, the refusal to quit, the determination to protect those who can't protect themselves. That was the difference between soldiers and everyone else. Soldiers knew that the fight never really ended. It just found new battlefields. The federal safe house was nothing like the warehouse. 30 miles outside Portland in dense forest, high fences topped with razor wire, guard towers, the kind of security that said the United States government was done taking chances. Inside, it was almost comfortable. More college dorm than prison, individual rooms with beds that didn't creak, a common area with a kitchen, medical facility staffed 24/7. They'd even brought in physical therapy equipment for Tommy and Wilson. The old guard had been given their own wing. 7 men who'd proven they still had value. 7 warriors who'd reminded everyone what experience looked like. Jack stood in the common area 3 days after the warehouse battle, watching Carlos teach a young FBI agent about Vietnam-era tactics. The kid was maybe 25, eager, taking notes like his life depended on it, because maybe it did. The thing you have to understand, Carlos was saying, is that tactics aren't about technology. They're about human psychology, about understanding terrain, about patience. These things don't change just because we have better radios. The young agent nodded. But modern warfare is so different. Drones, satellites, real-time intelligence. And yet soldiers still die in ambushes, still walk into kill zones, still make the same mistakes we made 50 years ago. Carlos smiled. Technology changes. Human nature doesn't. That's what old men like us know. That's what we can teach. Ying, Jack's phone buzzed. Colonel Hayes, Morrison, conference room, 5 minutes. We have developments. Jack found Hayes on video call. Agent Reeves was there in person. Tommy sat at the table looking nervous. Wilson stood in the corner, arm in a sling but recovering well. Gentlemen, Hayes began, we've had a breakthrough. One of Stone's contractors flipped, gave us names, locations, the entire network. Reeves pulled up files on a screen. 12 defense contractors, 4 Pentagon procurement officers, 7 congressional staffers, 2 sitting senators, and the man coordinating it all from the shadows. She clicked to a new photo, Nathan Lancaster, the hospital administrator who'd fired Jack. Jack's jaw tightened. Lancaster. He's been running this operation for 8 years. Stone was his cleanup specialist. When someone got too close or threatened to expose the corruption, Stone made them disappear. Medical accidents, suicides, tragic coincidences. Hayes leaned forward. Reed wasn't the first witness they tried to kill. He was the 6th. The previous 5 all died before they could testify. Tommy went pale. How did I survive? Luck and Jack Morrison. Reeves looked at Jack with something like respect. If you hadn't been in that emergency room that night, Reed would have died like the others. Stone would have made it look like complications from his wounds. Case closed. What's the timeline? Jack asked. FBI is executing warrants as we speak. Simultaneous raids across 6 states. We'll have most of them in custody by tonight. Hayes' expression hardened. But Stone is still in the wind. He's gone dark. No electronic footprint. No sightings. He's a ghost. He'll surface, Jack said quietly. Men like Stone can't help themselves. They have to finish what they start. That's what I'm afraid of. Reeves pulled up another file. We've analyzed Stone's pattern. Every target he's ever pursued, he eventually got. Sometimes it took weeks, sometimes months, but he always finished the job. So what's the plan? Wilson asked. We keep Reed in protective custody until trial. 6 weeks from now, federal court in Washington, D.C. With the evidence we have and the testimony from the contractors, we don't actually need Reed to testify. But the prosecution wants him on the stand. Maximum impact. Tommy found his voice. And after trial, witness protection if you want it, new identity, relocation, or you can go back to your life with security measures in place. Reeves softened slightly. It's your choice. What kind of security measures? Periodic check-ins, electronic monitoring. FBI liaison assigned to you. It's not freedom, but it's better than hiding forever. Tommy looked at Jack. What do you think? Jack was quiet for a moment, thinking about all the people he'd known who'd lived in fear. All the soldiers who'd come home and never felt safe again. I think you're 19 years old. You've got your whole life ahead of you. And I think fear is a prison worse than any witness protection program. Jack met his eyes. But I also think some things are worth being afraid for. Like justice, like making sure your friends didn't die for nothing. Tommy nodded slowly. I'll testify, and then I'll take my chances. I'm not hiding for the rest of my life. That's settled then, Hayes said. Morrison, we need to talk about your role going forward. I'm staying with Reed until this is done. I assumed as much. But after the trial, I want you to consider something. Hayes pulled up a document. The Combat Medic Excellence Program, a comprehensive training curriculum combining traditional medical education with real-world battlefield experience. I want you to build it, to run it, to teach the next generation what you know. Jack stared at the screen. I'm 62, past mandatory retirement. You're also the best combat medic I've ever seen. And 3 days ago, you commanded a defense that took out 12 professional contractors using 7 men over 60. Hayes smiled. Age is just a number. Competence is forever. What do you say? Jack thought about supply closets, about restocking bandages at 3 a.m., about feeling obsolete and forgotten, about Claire's last words. Don't stop being who you are. I'll do it, on one condition. Name it. Carlos Rivera and his team, the old guard, they're part of it, guest instructors, teaching the things that only experience can teach. Hayes didn't hesitate. Done. I'll have the paperwork ready after the trial. The weeks crawled past. Tommy healed physically, started physical therapy, got stronger, but the nightmares got worse. Jack could hear him some nights through the walls, calling out for Martinez, for Johnson, for Williams, the friends who didn't make it. One night at 0300 hours, Jack found Tommy in the common area, sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. Jack didn't say anything, just sat down beside him. Sometimes silence was the only medicine that worked. After a while, Tommy spoke. Does it ever stop, the dreams, the guilt? No. That's what I was afraid of. But it changes, gets easier to carry. You learn to live around it instead of under it. Jack looked at the kid. You know what helped me after Vietnam? What? Helping other people. Teaching. Passing on what I'd learned so the next generation didn't make the same mistakes. Giving my pain a purpose. Jack's voice was soft. Martinez and Johnson and Williams are gone. That's a fact. Nothing changes that. But what you do with their sacrifice, that's still up to you. What if I mess it up? What if I testify and they still get off? What if it was all for nothing? Then you tried, and that matters. Because the alternative is doing nothing, and nothing guarantees they get away with it. Jack stood slowly. Get some sleep, son. Tomorrow we practice your testimony again. Make sure you're ready. Jack, thank you for everything, for saving me, for staying, for caring. That's what soldiers do. We take care of our own. 2 weeks before trial, Agent Reeves brought news. We got Lancaster, arrested him at his vacation home in Aspen. He lawyered up immediately, but we have enough evidence to bury him. Wire transfers, emails, recorded conversations. He's done. What about Stone? Jack asked. Still nothing. It's like he vanished. Reeves frowned. That worries me more than if we knew where he was. Stone is out there planning something. We just don't know what. Jack had the same feeling. That prickle on the back of his neck that had kept him alive in 3 wars. The sense that something was coming. He increased security checks, walked the perimeter more often, drilled the old guard on defensive positions, just in case. Carlos noticed. You feel it too. Yeah, storm's coming. Don't know when, don't know how, but it's coming. We'll be ready. 1 week before trial, Jack woke at 0500 to his phone ringing. Hayes, never good news at this hour. Jack, we have a problem. Lancaster made bail, posted by an anonymous third party. $2 million. Jack sat up fast. How the hell did a judge grant bail on conspiracy and attempted murder charges? Politics, money. Lancaster's lawyers argued he was no flight risk. Pillar of the community. The judge bought it. Hayes sounded furious. He's out. Electronic monitoring, but he's out. Lancaster doesn't matter. It's Stone we need to worry about. That's the other problem. Lancaster's lawyer visited him in custody, private meeting, attorney-client privilege. We couldn't record it. But our analyst read the body language. Lancaster was giving instructions. Jack was already getting dressed. He told Stone where we are. We don't know that for certain. I know it. Lancaster is desperate. He's facing life in prison. His only play is to eliminate Reed before trial, and Stone is his last asset. We're moving you right now. FBI is sending a convoy. You'll be relocated to a secure facility in Seattle. ETA 2 hours. Too long. If Stone knows where we are, he's already moving. We need to evacuate now. Jack ran to the common area, hit the alarm. The old guard appeared in seconds. Years of military training meant you woke up fast and ready. What's happening? Carlos already had his rifle. Stone knows our location. We're evacuating. FBI convoy is 2 hours out, but that's too long. We need to move now. Wilson appeared, good arm holding his sidearm. Where? Jack thought fast. The old VA hospital, the original location. Stone already hit it once. He won't expect us to go back. That's insane. Which is why it'll work. We move in 3 vehicles. Staggered departure. Different routes. Meet at the VA. Carlos, you take Tommy and Mike in the first vehicle. Leave now. Carlos didn't argue, just moved. Thomas and David took the second vehicle. Robert and James the third. Jack and Wilson would go last. Clean up. Make sure nothing was left behind that could be used to track them. They scattered into the pre-dawn darkness. 7 old men, 1 wounded operator, and 1 19-year-old witness against a trained assassin who'd never failed a contract. Jack Buick watched them go, then it turned to Wilson. "How's your shoulder?" "Good enough to shoot." "Then let's move." They were 5 miles from the safe house when Jack spotted it. Black sedan, 3 cars back, following at professional distance. "We've got company." Wilson checked the mirror. "Stone has to be. He's been watching, waiting for us to move." "What's the play?" Jack's mind raced through options. They couldn't lead Stone to the VA, couldn't let him find the others, but they couldn't shake him either. Stone was too good, which meant they had to stop him. There's a rest stop 2 miles ahead, truck parking, forest on 3 sides. Jack's voice was calm, cold, the voice of someone who'd made this kind of decision before. "We're going to end this. 2 against 1. I like those odds. Don't underestimate him. Stone has survived operations that killed better men. He's trained, he's experienced, and he's got nothing to lose." Jack pulled into the rest stop, early morning, only a few trucks. He parked at the far end, near the tree line. They got out, moved into the forest, found positions with overlapping fields of fire, and waited. The black sedan pulled in 2 minutes later, parked 50 yards away, engine running. Stone got out slowly, unarmed that Jack could see, but that didn't mean anything. Men like Stone were always armed. He walked toward Jack's truck, careful, checking angles, professional. Jack's voice carried across the parking lot. "That's far enough, Stone." Stone stopped, smiled. "Morrison, I was hoping it would be you." "Where's Reed?" "Somewhere you'll never find him." "We both know that's a lie. You're alone. Lancaster gave you one last mission and you're trying to complete it. But you're too late. The network is broken. Lancaster is arrested. The others are flipping. It's over." "It's not over until I say it's over." Stone's voice was calm, almost conversational. "I have a reputation to maintain. I've never failed a contract. I'm not starting now. Reed is protected. You can't get to him. I got to Wilson. I got to your safe house. I'll get to Reed." Stone took a step forward. "You should have stayed a supply clerk, Morrison. This world, this game, it's not for old men." "Funny, I was thinking the same thing about you." Stone's smile faded. "You think you can take me? You are 62 years old. Your leg is damaged. Your reflexes are shot. I'm younger, faster, better trained. Maybe, but I have something you don't." "What's that?" "A reason to fight that's bigger than money." Stone moved first, fast, trained, his hand going for the gun hidden at his waist. But Jack had been expecting it, had fought men like Stone before, had learned that the fastest draw didn't always win. Sometimes the smartest shot did. Jack fired from concealment. 3 rounds, center mass. Stone staggered, dropped to one knee, but he got his gun out. Returned fire. Wilson flanked right, took his shot, caught Stone in the shoulder. Stone went down, but he wasn't done, rolled behind his car, used it for cover. "You can't win this," Jack called out. "FBI is 5 minutes away. We already called them. You can surrender or you can die. Your choice." "I don't surrender." Stone's voice was tight with pain, but still defiant. "I finished the job." "Then you'll die trying." Stone laughed. Wet, painful. "At least I'll die doing what I'm good at, not pushing a supply cart, not pretending to be something I'm not. I'm a weapon, Morrison. That's all I've ever been. That's all I'll ever be." "You could have been more. Could have used your skills for something that mattered. But you chose money over mission, profit over purpose." Jack's voice was sad. "That's the difference between us, Stone. I'm still a soldier. You're just a mercenary." Sirens in the distance, getting closer. Stone tried to stand, to make one last attempt, but his legs wouldn't hold him. The blood loss was too much. He collapsed against his car, gun still in his hand, but no strength left to raise it. Jack approached carefully. Wilson covering, they kicked the gun away. Checked him for other weapons. Stone looked up at Jack. "You won." "No, I survived. There's a difference." "Is there?" Stone coughed, blood on his lips. "We're both killers, Morrison. We both have bodies behind us. The only difference is you get to call yourself a hero. The difference is I killed to protect people. You killed for money. That matters. Does it? To the people we killed, does it really matter why?" Jack didn't have an answer for that. Because Stone was right. Dead was dead. Motivation didn't change the body count. The FBI arrived. Paramedics. Agent Reeves. They stabilized Stone. He'd lived to stand trial, lived to spend the rest of his life in prison. As they loaded him into the ambulance, Stone looked at Jack one last time. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You're done. Reed lives. The network falls. Justice wins. Justice, Stone laughed. There's no such thing. Just winners and losers. And today you won. Congratulations, Morrison. Enjoy it while it lasts. The ambulance doors closed. Jack stood in that parking lot as the sun came up over Portland. Exhausted, hurting, but victorious. Wilson appeared beside him. You okay? I will be. That was a hell of a thing you did, taking him down. We took him down together. That's how soldiers win, not alone. His phone buzzed. Carlos. Jack, we're at the VA, all secure. Tommy's safe. Where are you? Just finished some business. We're heading to you now. 6 weeks later, Jack stood outside the federal courthouse in Washington, D.C. Tommy was inside giving testimony. 4 hours of questions. 4 hours of exposing the network that had tried to kill him. The old guard was there. All of them. Sitting in the gallery. A show of support. 7 old men who'd proven they still mattered. Carlos stood beside Jack on the courthouse steps. Think the jury will convict? With the evidence Reeves has, Stone's testimony, Lancaster's communications, they'd have to be idiots not to. Stranger things have happened. Not today. Today, justice actually works. The jury deliberated for 8 hours, came back with verdicts on all counts. Lancaster, guilty, conspiracy, fraud, bribery, attempted murder, 35 years. The defense contractors, guilty, sentences ranging from 15 to 25 years. The Pentagon officers, guilty, dishonorably discharged, 10 to 20 years. The congressional staffers, guilty, 8 to 15 years. Stone, guilty on all counts, life without parole for the attempted murders, for the conspiracy, for every crime he'd committed in the name of profit. As they led Lancaster out of the courtroom, he looked at Jack. No words, just hatred. The kind of hatred that came from being beaten by someone you'd underestimated. Jack looked back. No satisfaction, no gloating, just the quiet certainty of a man who'd done his job. Outside, Tommy found Jack. The kid looked different, older. Not just in age, but in bearing. The weight he'd been carrying was lighter now. It's over, Tommy said. It's really over. This part is. Now comes the hard part. What's that? Living. Building a life that honors what you've been through. Making sure Martinez and Johnson and Williams didn't die for nothing. Tommy nodded. Colonel Hayes offered me a position. Inspector General's office. Investigating corruption. Making sure this doesn't happen again. What did you say? I said yes. If you'll teach me, if you'll show me how to be the kind of man who stands up when it matters. Jack put a hand on Tommy's shoulder. You already are that man. You just need to remember it. Agent Reeves appeared. Morrison, the FBI director wants to meet you. Thank you personally for what you did. Not necessary. He insists. Also, there's a ceremony next month. Valor Awards for you and the old guard. For exceptional civilian service in defense of a federal witness. Jack looked at Carlos. The old Marine was trying not to smile. We're not heroes, Agent Reeves. We're just soldiers who did our job. That's what heroes always say. She handed him a card. My direct line. If you ever need anything, FBI owes you a debt. After she left, Carlos laughed. Valor Awards. At our age. Who would have thought? I don't care about awards. I care that we proved something. What's that? That old doesn't mean useless. That experience matters. That we still have value. Jack looked at his friend. The world tried to forget us. We reminded them why that was a mistake. 3 months later, Jack stood in front of a classroom at Fort Bragg. 20 young medics in their early 20s, fresh, eager, certain they knew everything. Jack remembered being that young, that's sure. My name is Jack Morrison. I'm 63 years old. I fought in Vietnam, taught combat medicine for 40 years. And 3 months ago, I took down a CIA assassin while protecting a federal witness. The room was silent. I'm telling you this not to brag, but to establish credentials, because what I'm about to teach you, I learned through blood and sacrifice, through mistakes that cost lives, through victories that saved them. And if you're smart, you'll listen. Because this knowledge could mean the difference between life and death, yours or someone else's. He walked to the front of the room. moved with that slight limp that never went away. Combat medicine isn't about memorizing protocols. It's about making impossible decisions under fire. It's about staying calm when everything is chaos. It's about knowing when to break the rules and when to follow them. He paused. And it's about living with the consequences. Because you won't save everyone, and that will break you if you let it. A hand went up. Young woman, maybe 22. Sir, how do you handle the losses? The people you couldn't save? Jack was quiet for a moment, thinking about all the names he still carried, all the faces that still woke him at night. You honor them, you learn from them, you teach others so they don't make the same mistakes. You give your pain a purpose. His voice was soft. And you keep going because the alternative is quitting. And quitting means the next person dies who didn't have to. The door opened, Carlos walked in. Behind him, Mike Chen, Thomas McKinley, James Peterson in his wheelchair, David Walsh, Robert Kim, the old guard. These men, Jack said, are your guest instructors. Combined, they have over 200 years of combat experience. They've fought in every major conflict since Vietnam. They've saved hundreds of lives. They've made every mistake you can make and learned from all of them. He looked at his students. Modern military focuses on technology, drones, satellites, advanced equipment, and all of that is important. But technology fails. Equipment breaks. When everything goes wrong and you're alone with a dying soldier and no backup, all you have is knowledge and experience and the will to keep fighting. Thomas stepped forward. That's what we're here to teach. Not from a book, from actual combat, real situations, life and death decisions. Over the next 6 months, they built something special. Not just a training program, but a legacy. Young medics learning from old warriors. Technology combined with experience. The best of both worlds. Tommy sat in on every class, taking notes, asking questions, learning not just medicine, but leadership. How to inspire confidence. How to make decisions. How to be someone others trusted when everything went to hell. One evening after class, Tommy found Jack in his office. Small space. Filing cabinets. Photos on the wall of students who'd gone through the program. Some of them were deployed now, saving lives in places Jack would never see. I wanted to thank you, Tommy said, for all of this, for giving me a future when I thought I didn't have one. Jack looked up from the reports he was grading. You gave yourself a future. I just kept you alive long enough to claim it. It's more than that. You showed me what service really means. Not just following orders, but protecting people who need protection. Teaching what you know, building something that lasts. Tommy's voice was thick with emotion. My dad died when I was 12. For a long time, I didn't have anyone to show me how to be a man. But you did, and I wanted you to know that mattered. Jack felt something crack in his chest, the same place that had been frozen since Claire died, the same place that had convinced him he was done mattering. Come here, son. Tommy came around the desk. Jack stood, hugged him properly. Father and son in everything but blood. You're going to do great things, Jack said quietly. You're going to make the Army better. You're going to protect people who can't protect themselves. And when you're my age, you're going to look back and know your life meant something. Because of you. No, because of who you are. I just helped you remember. They stood there in that small office, two soldiers from different generations, bound by shared trauma and shared purpose, and the simple fact that when the world needed someone to stand up, they both did. Eventually, Tommy left. Jack sat back down at his desk, looked at the photos on his wall. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. A photo. The old guard. 7 men standing in front of the VA hospital in Portland, the same hospital where they'd made their stand, where they'd proven that age was just a number and experience was forever.